Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, the events of the last 3 months in the Middle East and North Africa have been extraordinary. The sight of millions of people, mostly young, who are taking to the streets to demand democracy, accountability, and a better future is one that should stir the hearts of every American. Bin Laden is not the face of the Arab world, and instead it's that of Mohammed Bouazizi, a young Tunisian fruit who set himself on fire to protest the endemic corruption of the Ben Ali government, and through his self-sacrifice began the revolution that toppled Egypt's Mubarak and threatens to sweep aside leaders from Yemen to Libya. The most important feature of this revolution is that it's organic. The people in these countries are organizing, demonstrating, and bringing change without any outside direction or intervention. This has both instilled genuine pride among Arabs worldwide, but has also prevented the targeted governments and al-Qaeda from casting this as a foreign plot to weaken Arabs and Muslims. I think we need to remain mindful of this as we move forward, but we also cannot afford to let this moment slip by without doing everything in our power to help Tunisia and Egypt and others as they make their transition to democracy. The same underlying structural factors, lots of young people, high unemployment, a concentration of wealth in the hands of very few, and endemic corruption that gave rise to these revolutions are still in play. And if unaddressed, they will give rise to greater discontent down the road. Yesterday I met with a group of Tunisian business executives who are anxious to help their country in its moment of transition. They told me there are two things the U.S. can do to help them in the next few months if their country is to be reborn. The first is to help locate and repatriate money looted by the Ben Ali family and regime cronies. I hope that we're involved in that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we're doing to assist in that regard. This goes for Egypt as well. And the second issue they raised is that of debt forgiveness. As of 2009, Tunisia's external debt stood at about $19.6 billion. The country is classed as a lower middle income country by the World Bank. It's therefore not eligible for the heavily indebted Poor Country Initiative or the Multilateral Debt Relief Initiative. Are there other mechanisms whereby the U.S. and other stakeholders can work to cancel some part of Tunisia's debt in order to allow the new government there to redirect resources toward job creation and other initiatives that will help buttress democracy and prevent the intrusion of radical Islam?
Thank you for raising that. Let me just say briefly, yes, of course, we're very involved, closely involved, working with other countries in trying to make sure that we are aggressive and effective in making sure we can seize assets we need to seize and make sure that they're saved for the benefit of the citizens of these countries. You saw, of course, us move incredibly forcefully and quickly with respect to Libya, and we are on it, and we have the most effective regime and sanctions of any country in the world, as we're demonstrating in this context. Now, in Tunisia and in Egypt, and in general, of course, it's very important as we think about how best to support the political transition underway. We recognize that those new governments are going to face enormous economic challenges, very short-term challenges because of the crisis they're going through and the effect on the economy, but also long-term development reform challenges to make sure there's more opportunities for their citizens. And as part of that, of course, we'll work very closely with other countries in the region, with the World Bank, multilateral development banks, to make sure that we can provide the support that's going to be most effective in that context. And of course, we'll look at everything in that context, including the specific thing you referred to. But at this stage, we're still trying to assess what's going to be most helpful and what's going to be the most powerful package of assistance. But one thing I can tell you for sure is, like anywhere around the world, we're going to have to turn to institutions like the World Bank, because they're going to have more resources in the pipeline, able to mobilize more quickly, again, better leverage for every dollar that we're exposed to, and a better capacity to make sure that that assistance comes with reforms that will help advance the objectives you're referring to.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I'd love to follow up with you on both those issues of the debt forgiveness as well as the ability to track down illicit looting of those countries, and thank you for your testimony today.
We will be back as quickly as we can.